Hello and welcome. You're watching youtube.com/NDTV. This is where we go beyond the headlines to talk in greater depth about the big stories of the day. Well, today our focus is on a horrific story that is coming out of Kota in Rajasthan. It's a story that should weigh on all our consciences. It's a story of extreme negligence, perhaps even apathy. A story of 100 babies, newborn infants who have died in hospital, the place where they should have possibly got maximum care. Just pause for a moment and think about that. Close to 100 families expecting the most joyful moment of their lives, the moment when they would have a new baby in their arms. And yet what has happened is horrific, shocking tragedy for each and every one of these families as they have lost their children in just the first few days after they were born. Now, 9 of these deaths have actually taken place in the last 2 days of December alone. And now, in the first 2 days of the new year, there have been 2 more deaths, and that's actually pushed the number of the dead infants to 102 as we speak. Now, not surprisingly, this is something that has now snowballed into a massive political slugfest between the Congress government in Rajasthan and the opposition now. Several leaders coming out to say that this is something that is unacceptable. But also there seems to be a larger politicization over these deaths. So what are we talking about? As these families struggle to come to terms with what is possibly their worst nightmare, the focus, sadly, is almost entirely on the politics. Now, just take a look at some of the reactions that we've been seeing on Twitter. For instance, the UP Chief Minister, Yogi Adityanath, talks about how despite 100 children deaths in the JK Lone Hospital in Kota, as it's called. It's something that is shocking, but he says, what about the woman president of the Congress party, or for that matter, the woman Congress General Secretary, a reference there to Priyanka Gandhi Vadra? Are they not being able to feel the deaths, the sorrow of these mothers who've had their children dying? Now, Yogi Adityanath, in fact, has been very much sort of in the limelight himself following the violence and the protests and the crackdown on anti-CAA protests in Uttar Pradesh. Remember, that is where Priyanka Gandhi Vadra also has been spending a lot of her time. And whether this is an attempt to deflect attention from that or not, well, we're not going to pass any judgment about that. But it's interesting that Yogi Adityanath makes this straight about the Congress president and the Congress General Secretary. Remember, during his stint as Chief Minister in his own bastion of Gorakhpur, there have been so many deaths in hospital as well. And that's something that has been hugely controversial in the past. Meanwhile, Mayawati, the BSP chief, also tweeting today and attacking Priyanka Gandhi Vadra directly, saying the woman Congress General Secretary can come to Uttar Pradesh and spend time with the families of those who've been involved in the violence, the anti-CAA protests. However, she doesn't seem to have time to go and visit the mothers of Kota and share their sorrow. So she's made it look as though Priyanka Gandhi's visits are politically motivated in a sense. But beyond the politics, and there has been a response, in fact, from Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot, who is saying, don't politicize this issue. This is something that is bigger than political mudslinging. This is something we are concerned about and we will look into closely. However, a Rajasthan government team just a week earlier actually visited this hospital and literally gave it a clean chit. So what do we know about that team's visit? Well, in fact, that special investigation team that was led by senior doctors and the health secretary found that all the deaths were of children who were already admitted to the intensive care unit. Effectively, that means they were referred there in a critical condition. The team, though, did find that the medical equipment in the Kota hospital was not in the best of shapes. They said the incubators that were used to keep newborns warm were in fact not functioning properly. And remember, last week was one of the coldest we've seen in North India, with temperatures plunging across the board, including in parts of Rajasthan, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, whatever. The oxygen supply was through cylinders. The government has decided to now upgrade this to a pipeline system, which in fact will improve the oxygen supply, they feel. However, the government is clarifying that no child actually died because of a lack of oxygen. They said, this government team clarified that the causes of death were actually low birth weight, pneumonia, asphyxiation, premature births, and effectively giving a clean chit, saying that there was no negligence on the part of the hospital. However, the team did find that there was a very low nurse to patient ratio, and that might have been one of the reasons this could have happened. And in fact, teams that have visited this hospital have seen how 3 and 4 newborn babies are in fact sharing one bed. Now, Rajasthan's health minister effectively saying there's been no negligence. It is the BJP and the BSP, he says, that is doing politics over these deaths. But this has now reached the center as well. Today, in fact, the union health minister got involved as well. And if you look at our report on this on NDTV.com, it talks about how this is the committee that I was talking about. It's led by the Secretary of Medical Education and senior doctors who investigated the matter. They point out that it's the extreme cold that made it tougher for babies already fighting for their lives to survive these illnesses. Now, one thing that Chief Minister Gehlot has said, which has really shocked people, is that he says actually the number of deaths in this hospital this year is less than it's been before. It's in fact the lowest, he says, in 6 years. So what is that number? Well, he says 963 newborns have died from 1260 in 2015, 1193 deaths in 2016, and that was when the state was ruled by the BJP. So he is effectively saying this is a man who's already, in fact, asked for people not to politicize these infant deaths, but he himself has said that it's actually less now, and it was worse when the BJP was in power. However, as we said, the centre now getting involved, and Health Minister Vardhan, in fact, today expressing his concern and asking for reports. And that's something that we're going to see going forward as well. The State Congress Chief of Rajasthan also met Congress President Sonia Gandhi, who is now literally being dragged into this by political opponents. And she has also now asked for a report. This was apparently a pre-scheduled meeting in which various issues were discussed, but he quoted her as saying that she was concerned about the Kota issue, and there is going to be now a report. Well, Rajasthan, of course, I mean, there is a larger question to all of this, and that is the fact that Rajasthan has a very poor infant mortality rate according to the National Family Health Survey data. But in fact, there are 38 deaths for every live birth in Rajasthan. So it may not be something that is confined only to the J.K. Lone Hospital in Kota, which is now in the headlines and in the news, but a larger problem of infant mortality across the state. And those will be factors that need to be looked into. But at the end of the day, can we turn our attention away from the fact that 100 children, 100 newborn infants have died in just 1 month alone? Can the state government, in fact, refuse or duck responsibility on this? Can it in fact give a clean chit to the hospital and say there was nothing wrong? Those are the big questions that are being raised right now, even as the politics takes center stage. This is a story we're going to be following very, very closely indeed. This is something that should horrify and dismay each and every one of us. Thank you for watching.